Welcome to another fun-filled podcast episode brought to you by My World with Stories. I'm your host, Brooke, and today we have someone who is truly a gem to talk to and such a light. You may know her best from being an actor, singer, and dancer, along with being a cruise line and cabaret performer that has traveled all across the world. This is an episode you don't want to miss. I'm so honored to have Alyssa Maitoza on the podcast today.
Hi, how are you?
I read in your resume that you're from New England,
Yes.
and I am too.
No way. I'm from actually outside of New Bedford, Massachusetts. I'm from Dartmouth.
Oh,
Yeah. And I went to school at Rhode Island College in Providence.
I go to Dean College.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's in Franklin, so it's like right there.
Very close, very close.
So let's jump right in. So,
Sure.
how does a fellow New Englander fall in love with the passion of theater? Like, what was your start to theater?
That is such a great question. I always grew up dancing ever since I was 2. My mom put me in dance lessons, and the bug kind of bit me ever since then. There was a high school production near where I lived of The Wizard of Oz, and they needed kids to be the Munchkins. So when I was 7 years old, that was my first show, and I just fell in love with being on stage. And then after that, my parents were actually one of the founding members of a children's theater in Massachusetts called South Coast Children's Theater, and they just wanted more opportunities for kids to be on stage. And it was completely nonprofit, so nobody had to pay anything, and they're still running today. So I just got my start in children's theater that way and started singing with them, and I just fell in love with it ever since.
That's awesome. My first show was Wizard of Oz too, so
It's such a classic.
so good. I did it in high school as well. But that time around, I was more like, I felt like I can enjoy it more in high school than I was when I was little. Because when I was little, I kind of like, it was like all a blur. So,
Definitely 100%.
so you studied musical theater and dance at Rhode Island
Did.
College. So, what was that experience like? Like studying musical theater and dance? Like, what did you take away from?
I loved it. I went into the musical theater audition process when I was a senior in high school. I knew I wanted to go to school for theater. There was nothing else I saw myself doing, nothing else I would rather do. I wanted to perform and have the arts be a part of my life as much as possible. But I had no idea what I was doing when I was auditioning for all of these crazy big schools. The musical theater and dance audition process is unlike any other college application because you have to audition in person. Oftentimes there's pre-screens where you have to send in videos. So that was quite a stressful process for me, coming from a family where nobody else had really ever done this before. I didn't go to a fancy performing arts high school that was teaching me how to do this. And this was before the era of TikTok, where everyone was just giving you free advice and free information all the time. So I really didn't know what I was doing, but thankfully I got into a few schools, and I chose Rhode Island College just because it was super affordable, and I was able to double major in dance and musical theater. So that was a really big selling point. I also thought that their dance program was really incredible, and I was definitely going to be able to get that one-on-one attention from professors because the class sizes were quite small. It is a smaller program, but I think that I learned a lot. I also had a lot of opportunities to be on stage. At some of these big schools, you don't get to perform as a freshman, or you don't get to audition for certain musicals until you're in your sophomore, junior, or senior year. And when I was in Rhode Island College, I was getting lead roles as a freshman, and I was in dance company from sophomore, junior, senior year, and I was performing in pieces. So I had a lot of stage time with my professors and with guest directors. So yeah, I had a really great time. I met some of my most close friends there too. So I don't regret a single thing. I loved college.
So you did like so many shows in college. Was there like one that like you just loved doing so much?
Yeah, there was actually quite a few, but the one that stands out for me was when I played Belle in Beauty and the Beast as a freshman. That was a big challenge for me, but I love playing a Disney princess. There's just something that like made little Alyssa inside of me sing. Like I was just so happy. Um, it was really an incredible experience. And then I think all of my time in dance company where we were working with guest choreographers, that was really challenging for me. And it was also a highlight of my college career. I think one piece that I really loved was with Jump Rhythm Jazz with Billy Segenfeld. And it was unlike anything else I had ever done. It was just the most grounded I've ever felt as a dancer. And I grew a lot through that piece specifically.
You've also performed, besides out of college, you've worked at New Bedford Festival Theater, performing in like shows like Mamma Mia,
Yeah.
The Best Times, Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
So all great shows. So what was it like to work there? Like for you
It
worked
was
there?
incredible. They're a great regional theater, especially because I was able to live at home and still work professionally. I think it was a great way to dip my toes into the professional theater world. The theater that they work at is the Zeiterion Theater in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is a beautiful, beautiful historic space. It houses about 1,200 people, which is a very big space for regional theater. And I got paid to do what I love for the first time. That was where I did my first ever professional musical, which was West Side Story. And I got to do the original Jerome Robbins choreography, which as a dancer is just the icing on the cake, the cherry on top, being paid to dance and sing, and then doing the Jerome Robbins original choreography was insane. I loved it so much, and the people there are incredible, and I got really valuable experience for my other professional work.
You've been doing a lot of cruises lately as
Yeah.
a performer. So, what has that been like, signing on to this type of a contract and getting to perform all over the world? Like, what's that like?
It has been a whirlwind. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. I've visited over 52 countries and territories now around the world. I think experience meeting people from other cultures is invaluable. I think experiencing other countries and going abroad is so, so incredible. It's something that has opened my mind up so much and just informed my experience as a performer and as an actor and as just an empathetic person. I would not trade that experience for the entire world. I also really grew as a performer.
Yeah.
I signed on as a lead singer. When I initially auditioned, I auditioned as a singer dancer. And when I was in college, I would have said that my singing and dancing was kind of equal, but I was honestly more confident as a dancer growing up. And then when I got hired as a lead singer, I really had to work on my vocal range. I had to work on my confidence. I had to be confident leading a show
Yeah.
and singing crazy songs. I was singing Tina Turner, Carole King, Whitney Houston, like these crazy belty songs that I was not comfortable with prior to getting this job. So it was kind of baptism by fire. I just had to figure out what worked for my voice. And honestly, my voice is so much stronger now because I've had this experience.
Mhm.
Um, I originally, my first contract, I was going to be a swing. And then last minute, the person that I was going to be swinging for, one of the female leads, she dropped out. And so they said, "Do you want to do the full contract as a lead singer?" And I was like, "Okay, sure, throw me in." I flew to France by myself for the first time. This was in the beginning of 2022. So COVID restrictions were still a thing. We had to wear masks all the time. The guest capacity was at only about 50 to 60%. So there were a lot of rules and restrictions, but I was just so happy to be working. I graduated in 2021 and it was a really scary time to be in the industry because nobody was doing any theater. It was a lot of Zoom stuff, a lot of very small plays going on. Nobody was doing big theater. So I was actually in the first cast of that ship that was relaunched after COVID. So it was definitely a learning process for me. I gained invaluable experience. And I met so many amazing people. You live on the ship for 6 to 7 months at a time, which can be really isolating from your friends and family, especially when you're 13 hours ahead, 12 hours ahead in some different time zone. It's really hard to keep in touch. And the internet is abysmal in the middle of the ocean. It's vile actually. But you really get close with the performers that you're with and with all the rest of the crew. So now I get to say that I have friends all over the world, and it's been so much fun. And who doesn't like to get paid to sit on a beach or explore Africa or Japan? Or I mean, it's been incredible. Yeah.
Was there like a specific place that you liked? Like,
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I always say a top three because they're so different. Cape Town, South Africa is definitely top three. It was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to, but also there's so much to do. If you're a beach person, you can do that. If you're a nightlife person, there's so much of that. You can see penguins at the southernmost tip of Africa. Like they're native to South Africa, which is so crazy. I also went on a safari there. I went to they have beautiful wine country. We went on winery tours, and I also went skydiving in South Africa. I didn't do this, but you can also do shark diving and seal watching. It's a whole thing. They just have so much to do. I climbed a huge mountain called Table Mountain. That was just like one of the most incredible places I've ever been to. I also love Athens in Greece. All the islands in Greece are really beautiful, so you can't go wrong with Greece. I was just like living my Mamma Mia dreams in Greece. And then top three, the last one would be Okinawa in Japan. I love Japan in general. It totally radicalized me about public transportation because it's so clean there and it's so efficient. It's so cheap. All the trains come within like a 2-minute time span. They have their stuff together. They know what is going on over there with public transportation, but the culture is amazing. I love Asian food. I said Okinawa specifically because it's an island with beautiful beaches. Like they call it the Hawaii of Japan. And the water is so clear. And I've been to so many beaches in the Caribbean, around Mexico. But Okinawa's beaches are probably the best I've ever seen in the world. And they also have this city that I really loved called Naha, which had a little taste of like that Tokyo city life. And you still got the food and the culture, but with the beach right there. It was mind blowing. And then, oh my God, I loved Iceland too. Like, there's just been so many places. I could talk for 20 minutes about all the places that I've been to, probably longer.
it's a good job to have because you're also not only getting paid for what you love to do,
Yeah.
but you're also traveling. And
Yeah. And you don't pay rent. So I did this for my first 2 years out of college. And this is the first time I moved to New York City right now. This is the first time I've paid rent outside of college. And so I just saved every single cent. You're not paying for food on board, and you're not paying for housing. So it's the best of all the worlds. And then it really depends on what the length of your cruise is. I've been on cruises where we had 3 and 4 day cruises. That was a very quick guest turnaround. But then I've also been on cruises where it's a 15-day cruise or a 20-day cruise. And I was only ever in 4 shows. So on the really short cruises, on the 3, 4 day cruises, I was working almost every day. So that was more exhausting, but I also gained a lot of performing experience through that and just learned how to take care of my voice so that I could consistently sing at a professional level every night. So my stamina was crazy on that contract. But then I did another cruise that was around the Middle East, Mediterranean, and Africa. And that was 15-day cruises, 20-day cruises. I worked 4 days out of every 15 days. And so I just got to explore. And I was really lucky that as a singer, I had pretty much full guest access and I had my own room. So I was able to explore the ship, get to know the guests, hang out, eat the really good food upstairs. So yeah, I can't complain. It was really great.
While you were on one of your cruises, the Norwegian cruise line, you put together your own cabaret.
Yes.
Can we talk about that? Like, what was that
Yeah.
like?
It was incredible. It was on one of these really longer cruises. So I was in the production cast on board, which is essentially 4 lead singers and 8 dancers. And so we have set shows that the cruise line and the entertainment company that they work with put together. And it's a set show every time. You're going to perform the same songs, perform the same set. But then every cruise, the cruise line would bring on these guest entertainers that they got to come on the ship for only 2 weeks. They got paid a hell of a lot more than me. And they were just these incredible people that were world class entertainers. Like they had been on The Voice, they had toured across America. They were people that were former Broadway stars or former West End stars, and they put together their own cabaret shows. And so I was like, I want to do that. I want to have my own show. And then when I was doing these long cruises, they asked the production cast lead singers, they said, we have time if you guys want to put on your own show. They only have so many guest entertainers and it's a 20-day cruise. They're trying to fill all of these nights with entertainment for the guests. And so they said, if you guys want to put on your show, go ahead. And I snatched that opportunity up. It was a Broadway themed show. So it was essentially all of the songs that I loved growing up listening to Broadway music. And it was really cool. So now I have that set list. Should I go on another cruise or should I do a cabaret here in New York City? Yeah, that was a really great time. And my cast all came out and supported me. They were just so kind. It was really great. Yeah.
Not only are you just a performer, but I was reading through your resume and you also choreographed this past fall, The Monk
Yeah.
Coming, and then Spectacle Sisters. So what was that process like to be like a choreographer and like take charge of what people are doing?
It was really amazing. Growing up and throughout college, I've been a dance teacher. That was kind of always my side job, my side hustle. I choreographed for children's theater before. And this was definitely my first time in the professional musical theater world choreographing and directing. And so I had to kind of put my dancer hat back on and put that director choreographer hat back on after being a lead singer for so long. So I was a little bit intimidated when I went into it, but I knew that I had done this before. I had the skills to do it. And that was definitely a big confidence boost for me as a creative person too. It was so good to tap back into that creativity of mine and just be able to be trusted by a cast of actors, of professional actors at that. And it was really incredible. I don't think people realize that cruises and theme parks, because this was at a theme park in Pennsylvania that I was choreographing these shows for. People don't realize that the quality of entertainment on cruises and theme parks are elite. These shows have crazy budgets. They are not playing around. They're very hard to sing. It's challenging choreography. And so I was just really proud of the casts. It was really fun because I love Halloween too. So I got to create these really spooky, amazing Halloween shows for the theme parks. And this theme park is very popular for their haunt and their scare actors. So I got to provide a little bit more of like the spooky vibe, which was very cool.
So what's next for you? Like, what are you like you said that you're in New York
Mhm.
first time. So what's next for Alyssa is what I
Yeah, I've just been in such a transitional season right now. I turned 25 last year and I was like, I want my own space. I want to go to New York City. I want to do the thing. I love being on cruises and I probably will go back eventually. I was just doing it back to back to back. And then I was living at my parents' house in between. And I felt like I'm 25 years old. I need my independence. I need to go move to the city. That's where all the big auditions are happening. And ultimately, I'm trained in musical theater and I really missed dancing. I'm a lead singer, so I do dance a little bit on the cruises, but it's kind of like when you see Taylor Swift or Beyonce dancing. Like they're adding some of the choreography, but they're not really dancing. So I really missed that. That was a big reason why I wanted to get back into more book shows and more musical theater. But also I just was looking for a change. And ultimately I really want to get back into doing book musicals, and this is where all the auditions are happening for that. So the ultimate goal is Broadway. So I've been taking a lot of classes here. I've been auditioning. I've been in some callbacks for some regional theaters, so fingers crossed for that. um, but yeah, I'm non-union right now, So I'm just kind of weighing the trying out an audition season, you know, getting my butt up at 7 in the morning to go sign my name on that non-union list. And yeah, it's definitely been a hustle. So I'm trying a season as a non-union actor and seeing where it's going to take me.
I've talked to a lot of people that have been on Broadway and stuff, so it's so interesting talking to someone that is not there yet, but
Yeah.
be there. So
Yeah.
it's like it's crazy because they always tell their stories of like, oh, I was here when this happened, oh, this and that. So it's really, I think it's really cool for
Yeah.
we're getting
I
to.
think it's realistic to see somebody in their mid 20s really just doing the thing, and before I get there trying to
Yeah,
make it work, you know, having all the side jobs and doing all the things.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I would really love to be on a national tour of a musical. So I think that's probably my next big goal. But yeah, I'm not writing off cruises. I've loved it. I probably will go back. It's amazing money and I love to travel. So
I had a performer on a couple years ago, and she did cruise ships like all the time, and then she booked Mamma Mia the national tour
that's awesome.
since. So I have a feeling it's gonna
I hope
work.
so. I hope so.
With that being said, what advice do you have for young performers that are just like starting out and like what's your advice?
Oh my goodness. I have so much advice. Comparison is a thief of joy.
Mhm.
Do not compare yourself to of other people around you. Compare yourself to past you and work as hard as you possibly can to improve yourself and be better than you were yesterday. Also, there's somebody that's younger than you, that's prettier than you, that is working harder than you. So, really, like, comparison is the thief of joy. There's always going to be someone that you envy their career or that you look up to or that maybe you're even a little bit jealous of, but you can't let that affect your performance and affect your confidence, because at the end of the day you bring something unique to the table that maybe those other people don't bring. And also, everything has so much to do with things that you can't control, like your looks or your height or maybe your voice type that you really cannot control. So half the time when it's a no, it's a not yet,
Yeah.
or it's a maybe not right now, maybe you're not right for this, but
Mhm.
maybe something else. So it's always thinking about my no's as a redirection rather than a rejection.
No, I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah. I feel like that needs to be said more,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, not just to performers, but to just
Yeah.
people.
Also, it's very interesting being in my mid 20s. I know I'm still very young, but I'm starting to see other women, specifically my age,
Mhm.
get caught up in the timeline of it all. And I think that timelines are also the death of joy. Timelines are a thief of joy and a thief of progress. Because if I sat here and I said, oh, I need to be on Broadway by the time I'm 27, or I really wanted to move to New York City by the time I was 23, or even in my personal life, I know so many women specifically that are like, well, I'm still single and I'm 28 or I'm 30, or I know so many people. There's no timeline to that. There's no timeline to moving to the city. There's no timeline for achieving your dreams or being in a Broadway show or being on a cruise or booking a dance project. If you hold yourself to these unrealistic expectations that are they're not based on anything,
Right.
you're going to burn yourself out trying to reach these unrealistic timelines. So my advice is just like, take a deep breath. It is a marathon, not a sprint. You have time. We're not old. I'm like, it's so funny. I was at an audition recently and I think this girl was well meaning. Like, she was very sweet, but she was 18 and we were talking about college and I told her my age and she was like, wow, you don't look that old. And I was like, but I'm not. Like, I know she meant well. Like, I know I do look young for my age, but I was just like, 25 is not old.
Oh,
We're very young.
yeah. No, people say that to me all the time. They're like, "You're 19?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "You don't
Mhm.
look it. You look much
Yeah.
younger than that." And
And you're like, thank you very
yeah,
much. But also 19 is so young.
yeah. And like in years to come, when I'm like in my 30s or 50s, 40s, whatever you want to call it, I'm gonna appreciate that
Yeah.
even more.
You're gonna look amazing. We're gonna look so young. We're gonna be moisturized and glowing.
Yeah. But I think like that you're right with that. There's no timeline
There
about
isn't. I
like
know people making their Broadway debuts in their 50s, in their 60s, making their Broadway debuts as a dancer in their 30s. And people think there's this shelf life, but if you really take care of your body, you can do anything that you set your mind to.
yeah. Totally. But where can people follow you to stay up to date? I know the whole TikTok thing. I don't know what's going on with
Yes, I that whole thing has been crazy. It's such a publicity stunt. I can't. But on TikTok, I'm at Alyssa underscore Maitoza, Maitoza. And Instagram is just at Alyssa Maitoza.
that.
Yeah.
Well, it's so awesome to talk to you and to get to know you and stuff. I really
Thanks for having me. And if you need anything, any advice or anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Keep in touch.
have a good day.
You too.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much for listening and watching to My World with Stories podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date, you can follow My World with Stories podcast on both Facebook and Instagram at My World with Stories podcast. Make sure to give this podcast a like for future episodes coming your way. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and we will see you guys next time.